Welcome to the Safari Yangu podcast, where we bring you authentic stories, experiences that shaped us, and experiences that continue to shape us. I'm your host, Miss Kimaru. Karibu yet to another episode. And today we are talking about a very sensitive matter. We're talking about sexual predation in our schools with reference to the Alliance Girls High School scandal of the teacher and the system by Christine Mungai and Africa Uncensored. I want to add my voice onto this matter, and I want to begin by naming it clearly. This is happening in our classrooms, it is happening in our dormitories, it is happening in those school trips and closed door meetings. It is happening, and it's often hidden behind silence, shame, and systems that protect perpetrators instead of victims. Yes, it's happening. And also, even as we continue to talk about what's happening in our schools, I'd also like us to particularly highlight also what's happening in our own homes, because that's where it actually begins. So even before we go to the story of the high schools, a lot of this has also happened at home, where it could be an uncle, it could be a brother, it could be a father. I have seen a lot of stories online about kids getting sexually abused by their own family, or even their neighbors, or just people that are known to even their parents back at home. And it's quite saddening. And it happens to little boys and little girls, people who cannot speak up for themselves. And it is time that we gave our voices to this matter. And I am proud of what Christine did with this particular expose. When it comes to schools, I want us to talk about grooming. I have seen a lot of people talk about it online, and for the last 1 week, you would go online, and as far as this particular matter was concerned, I would go to comment sections, especially on TikTok, and people would be asking, "Oh, why did it take so long for this to be exposed, or why didn't they say it? Were they enjoying it?" So instead of taking in people accountability, there was that idea of victim shaming. And I saw a particular video where old girls from Alliance High School had gone to the school to actually protest at the school gate, and there were people who were making fun on the comment section, asking, "Oh, so this particular teacher allegedly went through all of these people, like aliwapitia wote." In a Kenyan context, you understand what I mean. Yes, that is very insensitive, and that is the kind of culture that actually continues to add salt to injury, where people are not, we victim blame, and we don't ask for accountability or demand for accountability for the perpetrators. And that is actually one of the reasons why people don't give their voice to such matters, or even when it happens, they don't do it. So I also came across the idea of grooming, and for some people, they don't understand, and they will be like, "Oh, this particular teacher didn't do nothing until these kids were 18, and 18 according to the Kenyan law is a consenting age." But the one thing that most people don't understand is grooming. And I would like us to highlight what grooming is for those who might not know. Grooming is a term many people don't fully understand. It's the calculated process a predator uses to gain the trust of a child and the adults around them to eventually exploit them sexually. So as I was reading through this particular expose, I came to realize that most of the girls that went through this with this particular teacher, the ones who gave their story, the teacher was so kind and so nice to them, and that is part of grooming. You are only 15 years old, for example, you are in a school, and this teacher is particularly nice to you. You are going through adolescence, you are going through a tough time, somebody is giving you attention, they tell you maybe how smart you are. So in this particular context, that's how grooming also starts. So somebody is particularly grooming a child, they'll probably play nice. They'll give you gifts, as also was highlighted in the story. They will make sure they gain your trust in a way that you will never doubt them, okay? And also that happens even at home. That's why a child will probably they'll be molested, for example, and they'll never tell their parents because they have been groomed and they have been told, "Shh, don't say anything." or if you say something bad will happen to you, or they are given gifts in return for the sexual favors they'll do to this person. So that's part of grooming. It starts sometimes with a little extra attention than maybe if you're in school, than maybe what your classmates are being given by this particular. If it's a teacher, they'll give you compliments, they'll ask you maybe to go to their office, maybe they can help you with your homework, if maybe especially you're struggling with a particular subject. And as a child, you'll start feeling special. And I believe when you're going through your teenage years, at this point, you don't really know the self-awareness that a child has cannot be compared to the self-awareness that an adult has. So if this person has already gained your trust and all that, they can definitely after that do whatever they need, which is exactly what this expose was talking about in the context of the girls from this particular school. So they'll give you manipulative affection. Sometimes they'll show you attention, and then after that they will withdraw, then they come back, and then now you start, it's a kind of building slowly until as a child you feel like you are confused and afraid to speak up. So this is from this expose of the Alliance Girls High School. That's what happened to the girls. They would be made to feel very special. Some of them were leaders at the school CU. Others were just normal students at the school. And I mean, as a teenager, I remember when I was a teenager myself, I think sometimes you could be in a very confused state. It's like you're just discovering a new world. You are coming into age. There's a lot of emotions and a lot of stuff that you're going through, and sometimes this can be a very confusing stage. So with grooming, that's exactly how they will do it. So for the girls at Alliance Girls High School, I saw some of them talk about their experiences, and they would say, there was one particular one who said that this teacher gave them attention for 3 years, and when they got to Form 3, the attention it's kind of, he's like, he disappeared. He stopped giving her attention, and then after she was done with high school, he was giving her attention. So it can be very confusing for kids to be going through that particular whatever, and an adult knows this is happening because for them they do understand. So apart from grooming, I want us to also highlight the enabling environment. In Kenya, I feel like we grew up in an environment where we were told to obey authority. It was like, this is your teacher. Whatever your teacher says is right. This is your parent. Whatever your parent says, it's right. This is an elder in your village. Whatever they say is right. You are not even given room to express yourself or to say what you think, how you feel, and stuff like that. So even for kids, we didn't grow up in an environment, or kids don't grow up in an environment where speaking up is part of it, because it's like even before you say something, you already feel like, oh, am I supposed to tell on this person? What would they think about me? So we grew up in such an environment where we are not supposed to question authority. We're supposed to respect our elders. We're not supposed to talk back. If you question, it sounds like you're being rude, and and stuff like that. This culture kind of silences people. It instills fear and respect without limits, when you are just supposed to respect and not question authority. And I feel like even as we talk about this, it's a clear indication of also what has been happening in Kenya in the context of even protests. Like, we are trying to protest to tell you who is in authority that whatever you are doing is wrong. But because we grew up in an environment where we are not supposed to question anyone's authority, you cannot fathom the fact that now we can actually stand up for ourselves. And that is exactly what happens in schools and at homes for little children who are helpless, who cannot stand up for themselves because of this very limiting culture. And I would say this type of culture creates a very conducive environment for predators, whether at home or at school. And that's how they end up taking advantage. Because if I can tell a child, maybe a 10-year-old child, that you're going to do this thing and you're not supposed to ask anything, you're not supposed to tell anyone, you're not supposed to even question what it is, and that's a child, maybe they don't even know what's happening. Do you see how easy it is to even, like, for them, they wouldn't be able to speak up after that, because they don't, who are they supposed to go to? Their parents don't expect them to be able to say whatever they feel, how they feel, whenever they feel, so and that's how people or predators would get away with bad behavior. Sometimes it would start with somebody maybe touching you on the cheek. The next time they'll try to touch you somewhere else, like your breast or something like that. And then they'll tell you it's okay. Maybe as a child at home, they'll give you a sweet and they let you go. And that is a culture that has been normalized because we don't allow kids to speak up. And I hope for this, our generation, we can change that and we can allow kids to actually speak up and ask questions. Because if we had grown up in such a culture, then it means that these things would not be happening. Then we doubt when kids come to us and they tell us, for those who gain enough courage and they come and tell you like, hey, by the way, so and so, my uncle touched me, or dad did this, or the teacher at school probably touched my butt or something. What do? The enabling environment has created a space where we doubt them and we shame them. We ask these kids, what? I don't think he would do that. I don't think she would do that. I don't think this and that. Why are you saying that? No one should hear you say that. You get? So at the end of the day, this child at that particular moment when they were just trying to gain that confidence to even speak up maybe for themselves, they already know now it's even wrong and they should never say. And especially I have had cases, especially even in families, where kids have tried to speak up and say like, oh, my uncle touched me inappropriately, or my uncle did this, or my whoever, whether it's a neighbor or a family member, did this. And most of the times these kids have been doubted, they have been shamed, and as adults, that's when you start hearing those stories, because maybe they are now at a position where they can make their own decisions and they can talk about what happened to them. And I have had a lot of adult women now give their personal experiences of what happened to them, and these are very traumatizing experiences, what happened to them as they were as children. So I mean, the enabling environment, it runs deep, and it starts with that idea of not giving people space to speak up, and also questioning, not questioning authority, and also asking them, like just silencing them. And I mean, if you're a predator, they'll often walk away from this particular instance, because I mean, at the end of the day, if the child reported and the adult who is supposed to protect them did not believe them, then again, I mean, and in the context of schools, the students sometimes maybe speak up, but because again of this blind following of do not question authority, the people in administration would rather believe the teacher and not the student. So schools have also created an enabling environment where they do not believe their students, and they would rather protect the image of the teacher and also the image of the school. And that means the victims, again, they are shamed, they are unheard, they are unseen, and the predator walks away. So the other thing I would like to also highlight here is the Alliance Girls case, the teacher and the system. This story highlights the case of a teacher, as you all know, Mr. Peter Ayiro. And for him, he was repeatedly accused of predatory behavior of his student. As I was reading this story, I came across a lot of examples, and I was like, wow, this is actually really sad. Those students really went through a lot. And I came across the story, the part where the chaplain, I think it was a white lady, I have forgotten her name. The chaplain was explaining how when she was posted there in 2006, where she tried to, she did observations, and she was like, whatever is happening here is not right. That teacher is fraternizing with students in a very weird way, or this and this is happening. And she tried to call it out, and even at some point she confronted this teacher. But again, she had even threatened to actually she had threatened to report him to TSC, but she didn't anyway eventually. So, and that's how this particular teacher continued taking advantage of students for all those years. And most of the times when people choose not to believe students, even right now when they're speaking up, there's people who are asking, why now? I feel like until you've walked somebody's shoes, you will never know. Sometimes when you go through such experiences, you might not even be cognizant of what is happening to you. And according to even the Kenyan law, the adult is a child cannot consent to anything, and the adult is who knows what is happening, and they should be the one who should be cautious about how they do stuff around you. So in as much as there was complaints that were filed, this teacher was able to walk free for the longest. So the system, which is the school board, the ministry, they have allowed this to continue. And I would say Alliance is just an example. Trust me, there's so many schools out here who are also going through the same. It's like students are just surviving. And it doesn't just happen to girls' school only. It also happens to young boys. It's not just about a girls' school. This is not an issue of women only. It's an issue that cuts across, and we need to find a way to protect children in this case. So what happens when systems prioritize reputation over accountability? That is what happens when predators know that nothing will happen to them, and the school is not accountable. They prioritize how do we look out here, what's our reputation like. I remember there was a while back, this was not a sexual harassment case, but also there was this kid who died at school, and I remember their mother was seeking justice for their child, because this child was actually beaten by, I think, if I'm not wrong, the deputy principal. Before even the mother could get all this information so that she can start standing up for her child, the system was already trying to cover up for the deputy principal. So what have our institutions become like? Are the students safe at the hands of the teachers and the staff who are supposed to be taking care of them? I think we need better policies in Kenya. And the law is clear. Under the Kenya's Sexual Offences Act of 2006 and Sexual Act, a person, you cannot, any sexual act with a person under 18 is defilement, and that's period. But as I said, somebody might ask, these kids are already 18. But even without just looking at what was happening at Alliance, let's even look at what is happening in our homes. In other contexts, people are taking advantage of children. And somebody might ask, how are they dressed? What was they wearing? Oh, I don't know what. Again, blaming the victim and letting perpetrators not take account. According to that sexual act, if a child is 11 or younger, somebody should be imprisoned for life. And if they're between the ages of 12 to 15, not less than 20 years. If ages between 16 to 18, not less than 15 years. And even just touching a child's genitals or sending inappropriate messages, that is already considered an indecent act, which is punishable by law. As I said, we are not just talking about schools. We are talking about even homes, where this predation goes beyond our imagination. Your brother taking advantage of you, your sister taking advantage of you, your uncle taking advantage of you as a child, and stuff like that. And it also says that if you fail to report abuse, this is also considered a crime. I was looking at some clips of old girls from the institution. They had met at the school, and they had met the board, I think, and they were having a conversation. They were asking the brutal questions, like the real questions, what will you do if this and this happens? Where are the boundaries? How are you going to take teachers, or, how are you going to protect students? How are you going to be accountable? How, there was all this. And also the court ordered for this teacher to actually be arrested. So are we even ready for this particular conversation without necessarily victim blaming? As I said, I've been online, I've seen the conversations that have been ongoing, and people are out there actually victimizing the victims instead of calling out the teacher or the school or the system that continues to enable the predation of young kids, the grooming of young kids, to an extent where you've groomed them for a couple of years, and when they turn 18, you start kissing them, you start doing these manner of things. And I've even had people saying that the legal age of consent should be raised to 21. It is a sad thing to know that this is happening. And I wonder, for you, let me know on the comment section, what do you think accountability should look like? For me, I think accountability would start by first believing the victims. Like what has been happening, it's so uncalled for. And this is like, people are out here, they are saying, oh, this teacher did this to me. And the first thing we ask, why did you wait for 20 years to, to say this about them? Why did you do this? You don't even believe them. You think that they are fabricating their stories, yet it happens every day. It means, as I said, it means believing them. It means protecting them. Like, there's people out there who have shared their story, they have gone through this. It could be a child at home whose uncle has taken advantage of them. Are you believing them? Are you protecting them? Or are you punishing them for speaking out? When you go to like a comment section somewhere and what you're doing is trolling somebody for sharing their truth and their trauma and the things they have gone through, are you protecting them or are you trolling them and asking them that could you have probably said it when it happened to you? If they even said, some people have even gone ahead to say things when they have happened to them immediately. Let's even talk about victims of rape, for example. They say it has happened to them and people still ask, how were you dressed? What were you doing? Why were you walking there at night? And stuff like this. So this is a really broad conversation that we need to have. And also another thing, I feel like teachers also need to be held accountable. Maybe they need to go through some training of child protection. In short, what I'm saying is the system should stop enabling and start taking into account. If we come here and I report like, oh, I'm being taken advantage of, what do you do about that situation? Are you, as a school, for example, protecting this particular person because you're also trying to protect your reputation and you don't want people out there to think like, oh, our school's reputation will go under the bus? It also means that parents and teachers, they need to teach children. They need to teach children what respect and boundaries look like. And also in the context of even boundaries, there's the respect and not just blind respect. So the respect comes with boundaries. Like if maybe an adult oversteps and you feel uncomfortable and you're uncomfortable already because they have overstepped, what can you do? How are you supposed to protect yourself as a child? Because as I said, these things happen on a daily basis. And also for schools, I believe when I was in high school, we used to have a suggestion box and we were told, oh, it's okay, you can write whatever you think. But from what I've also read online, a lot of people giving their experiences. Some of those suggestion boxes have never worked. Like you write stuff about it and then after that you'll be victimized because of what you wrote on a suggestion box or because of the idea of the things you wrote, and maybe you are going through the most. I've heard about people say online, people say that, oh, they even followed up to see whose handwriting was matching these so that they could actually get to who actually wrote that particular thing. So schools have to create a safe and a clear way of reporting such cases, and also a way that children can be able to speak up and say like, hey, we think this and this teacher is not doing the right thing and this is exactly what happened, so that they can a safe environment to enable children to really tell their truth in their own terms, in their own words, and without feeling victimized. And that's exactly what needs to happen in Kenya today. Speaking of which, I also think about a lot of schools have counselors, or they call them counselors most of the times. And I think the one thing that has stood out every time I talk to like friends from the different schools, I have friends all over anyway who have gone to different schools. You ask them how their counseling used to be, somebody will tell you, me, I would never go to the counselor. And you ask them, why were you not going to the counselor to confide in them about a particular thing? They're like, the moment I tell the counselor something, the next thing I know, it's being talked about maybe in the staff room or even in classrooms, and you wonder, you just told one person but the story is out there. So schools should also come up, I don't know what will happen, whether it's training or getting better professionals or better accountability for these professionals, because you can be going, as a child, you can be going to a counselor to confide in them, and the next thing you know, your story is all over. So in the context of creating safe spaces, schools actually need to also look into the counselors they hire and how professional they are, because if you're sharing my story out there, then you're also making there's no accountability, and also the next time something happens to me, I'll not be able to speak up. So again, it doesn't allow room for speaking up if the person you're confiding in is a person who will become I don't know what to call them, but tangazo, this is what happened. No. So you need to create safe spaces, even as far as when kids talk to counselors in the schools. And also it means that the Teacher Service Commission, school boards, the Ministry of Education can act swiftly and publicly when predators are exposed. Like, for example, people talked about Peter Airo, and this is something that I hear he had a case a while back also that was I guess that was overthrown or something. That's when I think they should have started following up on him so that it doesn't get to where it was right now. Like the kids who went to school just last year at that particular school, they probably didn't have to go through all that, but it happened. So how can we protect children? We can protect them by teaching them their rights, teaching them to speak up for themselves and their importance. We can protect them by listening, by hearing them, and by actually just not just listening, hearing them and taking action. If a student comes to you and they're like, hey, this teacher did this, or my uncle or my auntie or my whoever touched me in a way I don't feel right, instead of doubting them and shaming them, you listen to them and you take appropriate action. We can protect children by showing them that even when the system fails, someone is still on their side. And students must know that no teacher, no prefect or coach, no principal has the right to violate their body, their peace, or their trust. So in short, we can protect our children by holding spaces for them and by showing them that they have the power to stand up for themselves, to speak up, to be heard, and to be believed. Our silence enables predators. Our children deserve better, and accountability is not just about punishment. It's also about prevention. If somebody had listened to some of the complaints that were made at Alliance maybe years ago, that would not have continued for more than 20 years. You need to believe survivors and victims of these particular issues. You need to allow them to speak up. You need to also speak up, give them a voice if they cannot speak up for themselves. And we need to demand a system that protects, not the one that hides the truth or it's sad, but I hope we can actually do better and stop victim shaming, because that essentially is what has costed us a lot. And that is why students don't speak up. That's why children at home don't speak up. And that's why people are predating on them and taking advantage of them, whether sexually or whatever. We need to do better. I'm Miss Kimaru. Thank you for listening to Safari Yangu podcast and for following us on our social media platforms. Until the next one, bye.